All right, all right, all right. We're back for another episode. And you know what I'm going to tell you about? I'm going to tell you about my Alp. Alp, baby. Alp is the way to go. If you love your nicotine, but you're tired of the tobacco, get you some Alp nicotine pouches and it will set you right. I smoked for 28 years. I finally gave up on it. I couldn't even walk down my driveway without getting short of breath. Couldn't go up the stairs. Was having trouble at work. It was causing me issues doing yard work. So I was like, I got to give up the cigarettes. I quit smoking. I started the nicotine pouches. Out came out, and I was like, I'm in. It's been almost a year. I haven't had a cigarette, and I don't miss them at all. I just I put them down. I'm good. I'm done with it. I don't want a cigarette anymore, but I got my Alps. So whenever I'm having that feeling where I'm just on edge and I just need that little something to help my mind clear up, to help me think a little better, to get me to where I'm not so stressed out, I pop a nicotine pouch in. I'm good to roll. I got one in right now. Wintergreen's my flavor, 9 milligram. That's what I go for. I like that little burst at the very beginning where I get that little bit of a buzz, and I'm like, yeah, all right, that's nice because I know it's working. But they have 3, 6, and 9 milligrams. You're not stuck with wintergreen. There's mint, there's tropical fruit, there's wintergreen. There's another flavor. It's some sort of wintergreen type flavor. I can't remember exactly what it's called, like cool mint or something like mountain wintergreen or mountain green or something like that. Anyway, so go to Alp. And if you use the link in the description below, you get 10% off of your order. And if you order $70 or more, you get free shipping. That's what I do. 3 logs. That's 15 cans, last me an entire month of Alp. And I order it for 70. It costs me $70 a month. No shipping. Free shipping comes right to me. I don't have to worry about it anymore, especially if they keep it out of the hands of UPS because those fuckers suck. But that's another story. You want to hear that story? Go back a few episodes. I'll talk all about how UPS lost my freaking package. But Alp is the way to go if you love your nicotine, but you're tired of the tobacco. You don't want all the tar, you don't want all the chemicals, just want straight nicotine. Get you the Alp. 9 milligram is the way I go. Wintergreen is my flavor. I love my Alp. Go give it a shot. Get in the link in the description below for your 10% off. Order $70 or more, and you get free shipping. We'll be back with Jason Mironchuck in just a minute. You know how this works. Here we are, Mr. Jason Mironchuck, back again. How are you doing, brother?
I am well, sir. Well, yeah, I'm well. We'll leave it at that.
My
I'm
mom,
all
my
over.
I was
Yeah,
talking to my mom on Mother's Day, and she was like, "So who are you recording with this week? This week?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm recording with Jason." She goes, "Oh, I love him." So
oh,
your
shout out to
mom
your mom.
approved.
Well, looks like all the women in your life love me. Too bad the women in my life don't, but it's okay. It's trade off. We can trade if you want.
Well, and then
One
they won't
South
love.
African,
Then they won't
one
love
South
you
African for
anymore.
an Australian. You'd barely even notice, man. It's just like
Yeah, no, then they wouldn't love you anymore. That's just the way it goes.
well, I wish I could say I don't deserve it, but I definitely do deserve it sometimes. It's like sometimes I forget that I'm me. I'm like, why do people have a problem? I'm like, oh wait, you kind of have this thing where you start fights with everyone, Jason. Remember that? You're pretty antagonistic pretty much all the time. And so well, fuck it. Here we are.
That's all right. It suits you.
It's what the Lord gave me. I don't know what else to do with it, man. I'm I'm trying to channel it. Oh, you probably appreciate this because we both love UFC. I've kind of fallen off the UFC as of late, but I've replaced it with watching debates, specifically debates that involve Andrew Wilson, Jake Rattlesnake, Jim Bob, or Jay Dyer. And Jim Bob and Jay Dyer were just on the Whatever podcast this past weekend. I don't
Oh,
know if you
really?
caught any of it. They
Wow.
both debated back to back. They both debated this woman called Not So Erudite. She's a Canadian woman. It's sort of in that Destiny. I don't know if you know who Destiny is. Maybe your listeners don't.
Yeah, yeah,
Don't
yeah, I do. Yeah.
I don't recommend, but anyways, he's
Yeah.
a thing that exists in the world, and so she's in his sphere. And I haven't watched the full Jim Bob debate with her, although Jim Bob's debated her before. But I watched about the first hour and a half of Jay with her, and it's I watched it like a UFC fight now. You know when when you're watching a UFC fight and you see someone, you're like, oh, he's got him. Oh, he's set a trap.
Yep.
He's got the
This
trap
is
went off
it.
right, and you're
It's over.
yeah, here we go. And you have those moments in the debate. You're like, oh, Jay got her. Like here we go. He's got her in the rear naked. Oh, he's applying the pressure. Like oh, she's trying to get out. Oh, he's got her umaplata. Like so it's a good substitution for that, I find.
Well,
The
that's funny
Christian
because
apologetic. Yeah.
you're wearing your Montreal hat, and the UFC was in
Mm.
Montreal this past weekend.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, yeah. So
Was George St. Pierre there with the UFOs? He's
he
got the
was
UFOs, man.
well. He was there. He was in the corner of Zahabi. So Zahabi fought
Mm.
Jose Aldo, and St. Pierre was in his corner, cornering for him.
Who won?
Zahabi won. It was a
They're
good
still
fight.
wheel. They're still wheeling Aldo out, eh? I thought he retired.
He did. He retired and he came back, but
Oh, okay.
he said after this fight, this was his third or fourth fight back since he retired. And sometimes those guys they get that itch again. They're like, oh, and I don't know if I was quite done. So he came and fought like I think three or four more fights, and now he said, yeah, I think I've lost the hunger for it. It's just not in my heart anymore.
Well,
But it was
didn't
a
he want
really
to
good
like?
fight. He damn near. I thought he was going to kill Zahabi there in the third round, and then he just ran out of gas, and Zahabi was able to come back and pull off the fight. But it was a good fight. It was fun.
He had dangerous hands. You know what? Honestly, after that, uh, he after that loss to McGregor, he never really regained his footing. Like there was hints of him coming back, and there was always like shades
Well,
of greatness from
he had
Aldo,
won
but
the
like
champion again. He had become the
yeah, yeah,
champion,
no,
hadn't he?
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that he wasn't like still.
What
When you
really killed him is when he lost his ability to throw leg kicks because of his hip and knee problems.
right,
That
yeah,
really killed him because he depended so much on kicks. And once he lost that ability to throw kicks, I mean, that really was a problem with his strategy, his ability to fight. But yeah, no, that was a good fight, man. Him and Zahabi went at it, and yeah, but Zahabi pulled it off, and it was great. It was a great fight. Like
cool.
it was a lot of fun. And then an Australian dude won the welterweight title.
Well, it's the second time, right? Was who was the other Australian guy who won in
Well,
Australia?
Volkanovski,
That's
Alexander
it. Yeah,
Volkanovski is he's a champion again for the second time at 145. Robert Whitaker is also Australian. He had won the title years ago before Adesanya beat him for it.
yeah, yeah.
And then you have
And he's still is Whitaker still kicking around or no?
yeah. He's about to fight De Ritter, Renier De Ritter, who's a Dutch guy who's really good. He was a two division champion at ONE FC, which is the Japanese promotion, ONE FC.
Right.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun to watch. That's where Demetrius Johnson finished his career over there at ONE FC. And so he's in there. He beat Bo Nickel a couple of weeks ago, and now him and Whitaker are fighting July. I want to say it's July 26th in Abu Dhabi. It's either June or July 26th, Abu Dhabi. I think it's July. But yeah. And then Jack Della Maddalena, who's a 28-year-old Australian kid, just beat Bilal Muhammad for the welterweight championship over the weekend.
Well, the Aussie fighting scene, it's sort of like the Aussie pro wrestling scene is an interesting one, right? Because most of them get a lot of their training, direct training, and then a lot of their experience by fighting in Asia,
Mm,
right? So like that Australian Japanese crossover is huge,
right. Right.
and then Philippine like Indonesia and all the rest of it, obviously.
Mm,
So there's the kickboxing scene down here is pretty intense.
hmm
because of that, because
Yeah, that makes
it's a
sense.
hop, skip, and jump to go to Jakarta,
Well,
right?
I mean, city kickboxing is the biggest gym in that region. I want to
Right.
say they're out in New Zealand, but I mean, there's a
Mm.
lot of Australians that fight for them.
Yeah, I'm just saying like that whole like that what is it called, Pacifica region, like the Pacifica to Asia pipeline, in terms of,
Hmm.
especially with fighting, or pro wrestling is, I
Right,
know,
right, 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 right.
is what it is, but
Well,
like, hey,
well,
they're all owned by the same company now, right? WWE and UFC, part of Endeavor. You're going to see a lot of UFC fighters finish off their career.
hmm yeah,
Conor McGregor in WWE, when I
right.
think it's a
Or
if he
you
doesn't
might
win the
see,
presidency, then
yeah, right. Well, you might see more crossovers like Brock Lesnar and CM Punk too, coming from WWE to try their hand in the octagon, which will be interesting.
yeah, I think
But
well,
Glory,
there's a
Glory,
few, right? I mean, there was who is that black guy? Uh,
Lashley,
uh, Lashley, right?
Bobby
Really,
Lashley.
the only two success cases have been Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley, and I
Hmm.
think, and I'm talking like coming from wrestling to fighting. There's been a lot of
Right,
like Shamrock went from fighting to wrestling.
fighting to wrestling. Yeah,
So did Dan Severn, is
yeah,
one of the bigger names who kind of who was doing both at sometimes, right?
yeah,
But um, but you don't usually see it going reverse the other way, because you get the CM Punk story
yeah,
where,
yeah,
where you think you're hot shit. Like, everyone loves you in wrestling. You're like, I took some jiu-jitsu classes. I can totally do this. You're like, no, 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 you can't.
yeah.
No, no,
Well,
no, no,
I
no,
mean,
no.
you wanna see like the worst freaking ass beating of any of them guys was when Brock Lesnar faced off with Cain Velasquez.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah,
Brock
yeah.
Lesnar was like twice the size of Cain Velasquez, but you found out really fast that Brock Lesnar did not like getting hit punched in the face.
Well, yeah,
Like,
but hang on. To be fair though, because he'd also faced off against Shane Carson before that, and he got punched in the face.
Carwin.
Carwin,
Carwin.
sorry,
Yeah, yeah,
he
yeah.
got punched in the face by Shane Carwin, who was like, had mailboxes for hands, and he got punched in the face repeatedly a full round before he came back and just applied wrestling to him. I think the
Hmm.
difference is, well, when he faced off against Kane, by that point, Brock had already started having diverticulitis. I'm saying that wrong, but a gut problem. So when what's his face, when Kane kicked him in the gut, he doubled over like a sack of potatoes,
Mm.
because already having gut problems. It's the same problem that um, George St. Pierre famously left his career with.
Mm.
It's the same kind of thing with intestinal inflammation stuff.
Yeah.
So it's almost like it's related to gout and a whole bunch of other things. Anyways, so the great thing about Brock though is like Brock's just like a genetic weirdness. Like like, have
Yeah.
you seen his daughter?
Uh-uh.
She looks like him, unfortunately. She didn't get the supermodel looks. She looks like a female, like a trans version of him.
Like
It's disturbing.
just a square.
Fucking Nordic cave person. Just come, like, I always think of it, it's like, can you imagine like Roman centurions trying to invade Gaul, and then outsteps a Brock Lesnar? Like, that's what they were facing off with. Like, that's why they exterminated a whole bunch of those people. Like, screw that. What is this Nephilim shit? Sorry, I'm swearing a lot. Sorry, man.
That's all right.
Um, I
I
I know
don't
your
care.
mom's listening, so
Yeah,
well,
well,
yeah, but I care for you, so
yeah.
it's a weakness.
So
Um, yeah.
so we got all kinds of things going on in the news, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, I had heard something the other day that made me think of you, and I was just wondering what you thought of it because I've interviewed quite a few people about these tariffs, and most people are against the tariffs. Well, one of the things I heard was Trump backing off of tariffs because of the trajectory of U.S. bonds and the bond market. So I kind of wanted to get your idea on what you thought about what was going on with the bond market and if that was actually like a root cause or if you'd heard anything about that because I know you keep up with the guys that are paying attention to all that stuff and I'm just not able to keep up with everybody I want to keep up with.
Well, here's the opening grift. Everyone should go over to Gumroad and get their copy of Tales of the Shadow Empire, which I detailed in the first four talks, three talks with Stormy Waters, one talk with Tom Luongo, and then two other talks, one with Jim Jotras, who I now do a weekly show with, then and now, talking about the Ukraine-Russia war and how that factors into things. And then I just did also a talk with Charles Spadil, who is a lovely man, who you should talk to as well. And we talked about he comes from a background working in the precursor to Homeland Security. So we talk about the shadow institutions. But the mainstay of that original work was following this idea that we're heading into real financial crisis this year. And if the predictions that I'm following and a lot of the threads I was pulling come out to be true, you're going to start to see a lot of that manifest this month. And there's a lot of indications that this is absolutely true. A few things to keep in mind, right? And a few things we're going to be covering on my channel. Mironchuck now. There's the shill. Mark Carney being the Prime Minister of Canada is not a coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Carney was the only governor of the Bank of England who is not British born. Okay. Mm-hmm. He's then also the governor of Bank of Canada and sat on many influential boards. Notably, he started off his career with Goldman Sachs and presided over the establishing the post-apartheid bond market in South Africa, and was also one of the lead guys that on Goldman Sachs when they went into Russia post the Soviet Union collapse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
so wasn't he behind the scenes during the Trudeau administration too, like kind of Trudeau strings?
He's everywhere, man. He's the City of London He's the City of London guy. Right. So that's another term we got to keep in mind.
Not the city.
No. There's London, the city, and then the City of London, which is a real space inside the City of London that London, the city, is built up around. It actually predates the London, the city. It was set up by the Romans as basically a trade outpost out before the Romans, like where the Romans were basically just settling Britain. So there's a whole bunch of weirdness about that. That's one of these special zones in the world, right? You have City of London, Vatican, DC. They have their own rules. They're internal, but they're separate. Mm-hmm. And they have their own police. And in terms of the City of London, they have their own police force. They have their own ports. A whole bunch of interesting things associated with them. And I know everyone goes, but the tribe, and you're like, yeah, well, the tribe's there too, obviously, right? There's a few big names that you recognize, but there's also a bunch of other names that you wouldn't recognize that aren't part of the tribe, that are, I believe. Yeah, well, I believe that this all points towards a cult. The basic general thesis of my work for the last few years, and it's becoming more and more clear to me every year that I move forward, is that there's this frame called liberalism, right? And I've identified that liberalism in all its forms equals Luciferianism. These two things are conjoined. So a liberal frame is really just a Luciferian frame. Mm-hmm. It exalts the passions and denigrates the virtues. It's Antichrist. Mm-hmm. So while you're dealing with a liberal frame, and people think, so they associate the word liberal now with the left. That's not it. This is a Father Seraphim Rose point. And I urge everyone who's listening to this, if you haven't already, read nihilism. Because nihilism is like, if you've been following along, let's say you take Curtis Yarvin's Red Pill, or you're a part of the dissident right or something like that, right? So you're seeing things and you're noticing things and you're getting an idea of these things, right? And going, oh, well, they all don't like fascism, so fascism must be good because these guys think it's bad. It's like, no, fascism. I think the only crime of fascism was that that it offered an internal critique to this liberal frame, and that can't stand. Part of my work is understanding that liberalism really is the art of stacking contradictions on top of each other, and they don't stand on top of, they don't stand introspection. You can't look at them. The moment you start looking at them, the whole plate starts to sway and fall. Like everything starts collapsing
Mm.
because you can't. It's like you can't have this idea of feminism and feminism and capitalism don't work together, but yet liberal keeps them somehow conjoined, right? It's this new talking point where, and I know I'm going all over the place here, Tom, so corral me in any place you want, but the new talking point from a lot of the progressives is like concentration on GDP. And you'll see this in debates. Erudite, not so erudite, brings this up all the time. Somehow it's like GDP is now the new thing. Is feminism good because feminism is good for GDP and GDP good, therefore feminism good, right? This is their thinking. At no point do they ever consider what GDP is or how it actually affects anything or what's an indication of. Like, what do you mean by GDP?
Mm-hmm.
And it's again this very like second grade understanding of economics that we're all guilty of in some cases, because it gets obscured by very intelligent people who write these books who say things like end the Fed, but they don't understand what the Fed is or what it actually is doing. Or that, yes, the Fed can be a big giant problem, have all its problems in the world, but can also be a weapon and a tool. Like Jerome Powell right now is using it as a tool to break the city of London. This whole economic trade Trump thing is to break the city of London. And how I know that to be true. Okay, let's start off with this.
Well, wait. Let me ask this before you go there. So you're saying Trump's trade program, his tariff program, is to break the city of London, and Jerome Powell's Fed chairmanship and his and the interest rates that he's setting through the Federal Reserve is to break the city of London. Yet they're clashing right now.
No, they're not. It's kayfabe.
What?
It's
If you
kayfabe.
call me gay again,
it's a wrestling term. Kayfabe is like making you believe that the heel and the baby face are actually against each other.
Okay.
They're not. Jerome Powell and Trump are not fighting each other. Trump is not fighting China. I'll give you an example. Okay. So I know this is a video thing. I know you do a lot of audio stuff. So for people who are listening, do this experiment. Okay. I have a whiteboard here, but you can do it with a piece of paper. Go into your wallet and get out a piece of paper money, right? Or your currency, right? And hold it in one hand. And you understand that that's a dollar, right? Mm-hmm. That's a physical dollar. You go to the store, you can exchange that for whatever you can buy with that, with whatever that thing is, right? Mm-hmm. On a piece of paper, you can also just draw a dollar, right? So what I'm holding up here on the whiteboard is a dollar, okay? Mm-hmm. This is the euro dollar. This is your offshore dollar. Paper money, dollar you go to the store with, and let's say made up money, whizzle wazzle money, okay? 9/10 of every single dollar out in the world today are these dollars, the whizzle wazzle dollars, not paper currency. Mm-hmm. So what happened post World War II, you have the Marshall Plan. Marshall Plan is set up to basically rebuild Japan and Germany specifically, but also all of Europe. So the IMF and all these institutions are basically created out of the Marshall Plan to refinance the world, to rebuild it, right? Good idea. Europe's in shambles, need to be rebuilt. Japan and Germany too, specifically. So they rebuild them. Yay, good stuff. Here's the thing. In order for the Marshall Plan to work, the money printers also have to be dispersed. So it's no longer just the Fed, America just printing out their currency. Every single major bank in Europe can also print out currency. So when you attach this to globalism, there you get your problem. So we can use the example was set up by Stormy Waters is the Bangladeshi bucks. Okay, so we'll break it down this way: the Bangladeshi rice importer exporter goes to HSBC, goes, I would like $100 million, please, because I need to get this loan to set up my business. They go, okay, no problem. Everything else checks out. Here's the thing: you can take the loan in two different currencies. You can take it in Bangladeshi bucks and pay interest rates in Bangladeshi bucks, which is much higher because Bangladesh. It's a bit of a risk, right? Or you can borrow your money in USD at USD interest rates, which for the last 30 years have always been going down, right? 2008 crisis, what happened to the interest rates? Leveled up to zero.
Right.
International loaning rates also went down, and they proceeded to keep going down. So the Bangladeshi guy goes, give me the USD, please. So he gets $100 million in these offshore dollars. Okay. These are not backed by anything, by the way. It's not like at the same time when they give this guy $100 million, they also print up $100 million worth of treasury bonds, right? They're allowed, all these banks are allowed to have a certain amount of printing ability based on how much money they're holding.
Yeah.
And those numbers keep getting weirded out because we won't get into the whole history of it, but essentially a lot of provisions were cut out so they could just start lending insane amounts of money. This is globalism.
Right.
So the global market idea is to keep expanding markets throughout the entire world. And as long as you're expanding, then this is fine. So you can keep expanding.
Yeah, it's the utilization of the fractional reserve banking system in order to expand the markets.
Then you get into derivatives, right? The derivative market thing is where it really starts getting nuts, because then basically you can think of derivatives almost like people placing bets on this getting bigger, right? This having more wealth and more power because you're spreading it around to all these markets. The problem is that most of these markets aren't worth anything because they keep expanding into places that only know how to build up rice importers and exporters, amongst other things, which is fine for a local economy. The problem is the world only needs so many rice importers or exporters. You get to a saturation point and it's like, what else have you built? Nothing. So there's a term that people throw around, but I don't think people understand is market depth. How deep is your market? Most markets outside of the United States are not that deep. Right. I'll give you an example, right? So let's say we take movies as a market, entertainment, right? The entertainment market in the United States is insanely deep because what America doesn't just export movies, they export the entire market of movies. Hollywood is itself the market. So if Hollywood doesn't exist, it doesn't mean that films stop existing. It means that films don't really matter outside of the local market. Bollywood, for example, is massive in India. It's huge, humongous. Oh my God. And every few years, some smart guy thinks, we'll just export Bollywood to the West. And they try, and it fails. Why? Because it doesn't work outside of India. It's not very deep. Right. China, same thing. They keep doing this. Oh, look, the Chinese film market. And it's like, yeah. And they'll win an award and all that stuff. And then it goes away. Why? Because it's not that deep. The desire for Hong Kong movies just doesn't exist. They can manufacture some of it, and sometimes you get some cool ones, but no one really cares. Right. Yeah. Right. Everyone cares about Marvel movies to the point where everyone buys them. They sell the entire market. That's market depth. No one else in the world produces that kind of market. They just don't. America is just the best at doing that. So globalism finally hit a wall, and they hit the wall in Russia. The point of the Russia-Ukraine war, the entirety of it, and this is actually spelled out, and you will know this, Tommy, and this is spelled out by our friend Klaus Schwab, who so glad to see the backside of that man in both the
I hate to see you leave, but I love to watch you go.
I actually said that to a woman once, and it won me some points. But and it was true. Anyways, my wife. Of course, I'm talking about my wife.
Obviously,
I was always married to my wife. What, I had no life
I
before
was
that.
a virgin until I met my wife. What are you talking about?
Sealed in the
Those,
vat.
all those kids before her, I don't know how that happened.
Oh, just oddities. Um, so where was I? I
Russia,
derailed myself.
Ukraine, Russia,
Russia,
Ukraine,
Ukraine.
Klaus Schwab.
So you'll know this from the fourth industrial books and the Great Reset. The Great Reset, by the way, is all about this.
Mm-hmm.
The Great Reset is all about the bond market. So they had hit a wall where they can't expand anymore. They keep expanding, and they're just flushing money. At
Mm-hmm.
the same time, their derivative market keeps getting bigger. So right now, you can imagine it like an elephant on toothpicks. So there's about something like $4 quadrillion worth of derivatives in the bond market. It's held up by a few trillion in actual assets. Oops. This explains why they're evicting farmers from land all across Europe and seizing the land. It explains why BlackRock is trying to buy up all these assets like crazy because they have no asset base. So this entire structure is set up with no assets to back it up. And they're trying to seize assets like crazy to keep this thing going for as long as they can because they don't know what else to do. The Russia
And the
Ukraine,
result
yeah,
is you live in the pod and you eat the bugs.
well, the result is mass austerity
Yeah.
because this bond market is going to collapse. It has to collapse. It's just a matter of mathematics. It's gravity, right? It's financial
Mm-hmm.
gravity. You can't keep it going for long enough. The reason why this goes back to the tariffs. So, okay, you have trillions of dollars in USD that's been printed. That's all out there, right? It's in bonds, it's in assets, it's in loans, it's in this, it's in that. What happens when you have more of something, Tommy? Does the value of that thing go up or down?
Down. That's why
Right.
oxygen is free.
Right. So you can't deal with the inflation numbers fast enough. The interest rate numbers have to go up to basically preserve the value of the dollar.
Mm-hmm.
The dollar was being devalued
Mm-hmm.
extensively across the board, right? If they kept going that way, your dollar wouldn't be worth anything. It'd be worthless. Your physical dollar would be worth nothing
Right.
because
Yeah.
there'd be more of
Like
these than
like
you.
the
Yeah,
like Weimar.
right. And it has nothing. And everyone's distracted because like it's the debt, it's the this, it's the that. It's like these are all symptoms of a much bigger problem.
Yeah.
So you have the boomers, right? This entire generation that's now ticking over and getting all their insurances, all their uh, remittances, all that stuff, right? This is a massive problem. There's not enough money to pay it,
Mm-hmm.
and as they pay it, it just devalues this even more.
Mm-hmm.
So the people who are holding these treasury bonds, right? Like China, the number one holder of U.S. Treasury bonds in the world outside of America, are holding on to decreasing value. So if you have a 30-year bond that you're planning on cashing in, like let's say in 10 years, it won't be worth anything.
Right.
Major freaking problem. This is part of the bond market collapse. Is
Right.
that the bonds that were sold, let's say 30 years ago or 20 years ago, heck, even 5 years ago, are decreasing in value in real time.
Mm-hmm.
And if your entire economy is kind of set up to basically finance and refinance debt, well, then you can't refinance the debt any faster. You're going to collapse. This is
Yeah.
why it's a mathematical certainty. Okay.
Right.
Trump's
Yeah. I
tariffs.
mean,
Okay. So yeah.
and so, well, a lot of what you will hear from like the media here in the US is, well, the United States is a service economy, it's a consumer economy. Well, if your money isn't worth anything, the services you provide are not going to be valued. They're not going to be paid for, and therefore you can't consume because your money's worthless. And that's what they don't, that's what they never talk about. And so the more that they inflate the currency and devalue the dollar by inflating the currency, the less your dollar's worth, which is something I've been hammering on for the last like few months, is if you look in the 1980s, the average truck driver made adjusted for inflation, the average truck driver made $110,000 a year. Today, the average truck driver makes $43,000 a year. Like they're going to keep doing this to people and keep cutting the legs out from under people in order to save their own asses because they don't care about you or the country or the future. All they care about is today and what they can drain out of the system.
In order to keep this thing going, right? This again, all these things make sense once you understand what the frame you're dealing with. In order to keep this thing going, you basically have to keep promoting more and more corrupt people.
Mhm.
Joe Biden was a perfect avatar of this.
Oh
Joe
yeah.
Biden is one of the most corrupt human beings that has ever walked this planet.
Yeah.
Okay, period. Him and his whole family.
Hmm.
I think anyone listening to this podcast
Yeah,
can
there
agree.
was an article written in like what 2014, 2015 called Biden Inc.
Mm.
Yeah, and it talked about how as Joe Biden rose through political levels, his family's wealth grew. Or you look at like Nancy Pelosi, I
He
mean
was.
like
Oh yeah, I mean yeah. There's other names that would throw in that hat
yeah,
for
yeah, yeah. I
sure,
mean the
but Joe
Cheneys,
Biden,
I mean
Joe Biden was the guy in
the
Delaware.
poster child
Yeah, Delaware, which is like the seat outside of DC, is the seat
for
of
that's the
massive
credit.
corruption.
Yeah, it's like the credit capital of the world.
Yeah, we make our own rules. Why? Because we just make our own rules. What rules? What? It's like they're like what did Lenin say? Really, rules are like pie crust. They're meant to be broken.
Right.
So so you have this storm coming, and they've known about this for a while. By the way, 2008 wasn't about housing. It was literally one of these hiccups in the bond market, and they had to flush trillions of dollars into the bond market to keep it from collapsing. Lockdowns during the long flu was also a way to flush trillions of dollars from mostly from the US to print trillions of dollars out of the US and move it to European banks. HSBC, Deutsche Bank, Bank of England,
Hmm.
all the city lending guys. All of them.
Hmm.
That's why it's not just the tribe, by the way. It's all of them. Why? No one's answered that question. Well, what did lockdowns do? Two things, right? One, you could funnel tons of money for emergency spending out to places and people, and you don't even ask questions about it, right? Two, it kept the spending down, so you
Hmm.
didn't have to worry about hyper. You're basically cooking the market, but because no one was allowed to spend any money outside of a few big stores, and then
Yeah,
those guys are
everybody was
moving the money
buying from
around,
Amazon.
right? And of course, Bezos is just moving the money around,
Right.
right? He's circulating the money out too.
Yeah. I mean, there were some
So,
places, there were some states where you couldn't even buy like seeds to plant your own vegetables and stuff like that.
mhm.
They would have them like you could walk into Walmart, you would see the seeds sitting there, and they would have them blocked off, like roped off, so you couldn't get in there to like buy them. Like they didn't want anybody that was going to be self-sufficient operating on their own because they needed you to flood their market with those dollars in order for them to repurpose those dollars.
Yeah, and like I said, you did all that work on DEI and ESG.
Hmm.
That's all spelled out,
Hmm.
right? Who was the guy who invented DEI? Essentially, well, pushed it anyways. The most hardest, Larry Fink. Larry Fink runs Blackwater. Blackwater, essentially, all of Blackwater's money really comes down to 401ks, people's retirement funds, no assets, right? So the speculation is this: is that I know I'm jumping around. People who listen to this go by the Tales of the Shadow Empire. It's spelled out a bit more linearly there. But the speculation is that Larry Fink got together with Janet Yellen, and well, they were teammates anyways, and went and talked to uh, uh, oh, help me out here. Name just slipped my mind. Not Powell, Diamond, Jamie Dimon,
Oh, Jamie Dimon. Yeah.
and basically gave him the plan. And Jamie Dimon said, "Nope, not going to work for me," because uh, the the USB, sorry, not USB, the financial systems that they were going to put in place, especially government government Bitcoin, was going to cut out the middleman, right? It was going to cut out Jamie Dimon and his whole, and basically the middleman banks, and basically create a pipeline between the Fed, the government's, this one world government stuff, direct to clients. Like it's going to just cut out banks altogether. And Jamie Dimon said, nope, because that's my kingdom and you're threatening my kingdom. And so he went to war. And
Hmm.
one of the first things he did after that conversation is he basically set out a message saying that his bank is not going to accept European debt anymore as collateral. And that almost broke the European banks overnight.
Right.
If people don't believe me about this stuff, a good thing to go check out is the British gilt crisis. They've had three. Okay, gilts are the British banking term for bonds.
Hmm.
The last one I think they had in 2018 was basically spurned because they had an interest rate correction of 1% in their retirement funds, and it almost completely broke the entire Bank of England.
Yeah.
So
So
now we're going to, yeah, that
you had it.
corrections, there's a new correction coming, by the way. That's going to be
Okay.
a lot more than 1%.
I just wanted to clear one thing up. So you have in the Trump administration, you have Scott Bessent.
Mhm.
Scott Bessent was a partner of George Soros when George Soros was actively crashing the British economy in order to enrich himself. And now Scott Bessent is basically working on the opposite side of that for the United States. Like, how does he play into all this?
Scott Bessent, if you look into his family, Scott Bessent is a heritage American.
Okay.
His
So
lineage goes all the way back.
so
Here's the thing that
he's just
here's a miss.
rooted into the United States, and he's like, I could stand to see England go through this, but I can't stand to see America go through this.
Here's the big giant misstep. And I don't know how every one of these actors play into things. This is still, we'll see, right?
Right. Right.
The big giant misstep that I think the progressive era depended on was corrupt people who were willing to sell out their country and their own countrymen for their enrichment, and they
Mm-hmm.
finally hit a wall, and that wall, and people may not like this, but because I'm not exactly a cheerleader, but that wall was Trump and his cohort. And I believe it's you have like Trump, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Jamie Dimon, Jerome Powell, Scott Bessent, and there's many others who are simply saying, no, we're not
Yeah.
going out this way. Because one major factor in all this, and this is directly to Jerome Powell's credit, and why they had a fight to get him in, and they're fighting to keep him in. Jerome Powell did two major things. He raised interest rates for the first time in 30 years to 5%, which
Mm-hmm.
basically just started sucking USD back to the United States, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stop the money printing, right? That was the first step. The second step was moving the system from the system called LIBOR to SOFR. Now, LIBOR was the old system that had been around for forever. That basically meant that the American exchange rates were set not by American banks exclusively. They were set predominantly by the city of London
Mm-hmm.
and by that banking cohort. So basically, this whole idea of global American empire is BS.
Mm-hmm.
Because why would you have a big giant empire that you didn't have control of your own currency?
Well, the
Literally,
America
America
was just
didn't.
the
Yeah,
military arm of it.
right.
Yeah.
So America didn't have its control of its own currency until March 2025, which is when finally SOFR, which is basically, I won't get into the acronyms. People can look into this. I think it's usually better. Like I can spell all these things out, but I think it's better for people if you're hearing this and you're like, "What the hell?" Go check it out yourself. Do your own work, because I've done this enough times now where I realize that I say these things, people find something, I didn't dot an I or cross a T somewhere, and they throw the whole thing out. It's like, you go look into this, man. Like I
Yeah.
spent the last year doing it, and
Yeah.
I've finally reached a point of like acceptance. So it's a wild trip. Um, but with SOFR, essentially it means that America now and the Fed essentially is now setting its own rates for the first time in since America's creation. So that's huge. Trump's tariffs can be basically best understood as this. It's a big giant straw getting into the world's milkshake of USD and trying to reshore as much USD as possible before this bond market collapses.
I
And
like
it's
that
going to start
reference.
collapsing. And it's going to start collapsing. You're going to start seeing things this month. I guarantee you. It's already happening. 30-year bond sell-offs that happened last month in April are irregular. Very irregular. There's a lot of irregularities in the market that are showing that this thing is now stressing itself out. One of the things that Jim and I keep talking about on our weekly show, specifically around the Ukraine-Russia war. I'll just do that really quickly. The idea really was to take over Russia, right? To expand that market. That was part of the Great Reset plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
To extend this out longer because they still hadn't got everything set up, right? I don't think Trump was part of their plan. They freaked out. They launched COVID a little bit too early and had to scramble, right?
Yeah. And
So
that's what the
now,
snow revolution was about in 2011, was to try to push
right,
Putin out so they could install their own puppet and install
right,
Russia into the world market.
exactly. So their whole idea with this war was to end it very quickly by doing this econ war. Remember early on in the conflict, basically Visa, MasterCard, all these, they locked Russia out of SWIFT and all these other things,
Mm-hmm.
and that was going to destroy them. That was it. That was the war, really. Everything else is theater. That didn't work. Russia had prepared for it and sidestepped it. At that moment, I'm maybe not up anymore because it was part of the old podcast, but at that moment, I did a show where I was like, Russia just won the war. That's the war.
Yeah.
They just won. Everything else is academic now, and they've been proving that thesis ever since. I didn't expect it to go on this long, but I don't think anyone did. Anyways,
So
the
now
pressure.
you're saying the chickens are coming home to roost this year. We're going to start seeing the effects of all this coming down. How's that going to start manifesting itself? What should we be looking for?
You're going to start seeing it in Europe first. You'll start seeing collapses in Europe. I think my speculation.
Similar to like Greece a few years ago.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Greece was a trial run.
Right.
I think I don't want to be on the record for this because I don't. This is all like there's too many variables.
Speculation.
Yeah. This is pure speculation on my behalf, but I think you're going to start seeing it in Germany first. Germany will collapse, and once Germany collapses, the entire EU will collapse. And I'm talking collapse, like economically wiped out.
And
gone.
so the trade deal that Trump just signed with the UK is kind of like, because they called it an economic security alliance. So, and I had actually texted Buck about this because we had just recorded the day before that deal came through.
Interesting choice of words, isn't it?
Yeah. And so I was like, I looked at it and I saw what they were saying, and I texted Buck and I was like, they're trying to make an economic NATO. And he goes, does that mean they're going to get rid of the military NATO? I said, I don't know. I was like, but this is interesting. And so, like, that makes me think that what Trump's trying to do is offer the UK a parachute. And so, any of these countries
No,
that
no, no.
sign these deals with the Trump administration get offered some sort of little parachute to kind of help them hit softer and land easier.
Trump is giving them terms for a buyout.
Mm.
What's the other thing that Trump's been doing?
He's been kicking Mexicans out of this fucking place left and right. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Don't get distracted.
I'm just playing.
Yeah. But I mean, but that's part. I think it's kind of part of it, but I think that's a lot of theater too, because they're reshoring manufacturing. They're going to need people to work in manufacturing. But anyways, no, the other big thing that
Trump's for a job.
Well, there's going to be tons of it. You're living in the right country. He's building up a parallel Bitcoin market. Bitcoin is the new oil. His quote, right?
Yeah, I remember him saying that.
What is MicroStrategies doing? Well, MicroStrategies is building up a parallel bond market. Money's flowing into MicroStrategies like crazy, right? People are selling off bonds. This is again my speculation.
Mm-hmm.
People are selling off bonds and putting that money into Bitcoin because now Bitcoin is going to be the new secure treasury.
Mm-hmm.
So these trade negotiations with City of London, with Britain, all these other places, is
Mm-hmm.
basically giving them a cut in because where's the bailout going to happen?
So
Okay.
this is a direct assault on the idea of cashless societies. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's also why you're seeing digital ID get rolled out real fast
Mm-hmm.
because it's all going to be digital. It's not about you and me, right? It's
Oh,
going to affect
you're
you.
talking about the real ID?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
you're. It's already been being rolled out here in Australia and a few other
Well,
places, but very soon.
Texas did that years ago. Like when you got a driver's license, it was
Oh no,
considered real ID.
you haven't even seen this tip of the iceberg, my friend. Check out WorldCoin. WorldCoin is a Horowitz uh, uh, cutout. Also, Sam Altman's involved in it. It's this weird looking thing, right? That scans your ocular data to verify your online passport, is what they're calling it. Give you access to all your online data, right? No more security codes, all those really painful, remember all those passwords? Forget about it. Scan your eyeball's gonna be your new security code.
Your eyeball's the mark of the beast.
Mm-hmm. This is what's coming down the pike.
Mm.
Is that in order to access the internet very soon, you're going to need this kind of security. You're going to need some sort of digital ID, and it's going to be
Mm.
offered in, I think, in many different ways. I think really the conflict between the elites right now is how it's being rolled out. Right? We're downstream from this war of the elites, and
Mm.
we're seeing the circulation happening, and the technocratic arm, let's say,
Mm.
is winning out because they
Yeah, I
have
mean,
all.
and when they're collecting this data constantly, like, because I know, like, when you go, when you go, let's say, when I flew to Namibia, right, and I'm going through TSA and all the security checks, they check your passport. They look at your passport and then they scan your face to make sure it matches your passport.
Mhm.
So they're collecting this data all over the place. And I remember talking to a buddy of mine who was he was working the IT side of these facial recognition softwares. And this was right around the time of that COVID started. And I was talking to him about it. And because I had heard somebody say that the whole 6 foot rule was in order to separate people far enough in order to engage the facial recognition software. He told me, no, that has nothing to do with it. I work on this stuff every day, all the time. They only need your eyes. They don't even need your
Mhm.
eyebrows, your eyelids. They don't need your cheekbones. All they need is your eyes for facial recognition. He's like,
Masks, right?
so the masks and all that. He said that doesn't matter as far as facial recognition. If they want to find out who somebody wearing a mask is, they'll find out who it is.
Yeah, this is WorldCoin is going to be reality. And
Mm.
even in they have a YouTube video out, and one of the developers said jokingly, "It's like Minority Report." I'm like, "Yeah, it's like Minority Report, that movie by Steven Spielberg, where part of the part of the plot is Tom Cruise gets falsely accused of murder pre-crime, and is being tracked with his eyeballs, and he has to take his eyeballs out and put synthetic ones in to stop being tracked." And like, yeah, just like that weird dystopia fiction. Yeah,
Yeah,
oh, it's
yeah, that sounds
fantastic, great,
great.
yeah, 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 wonderful. Maybe choose a different reference point, dickhead. But anyways, right, here's the thing too, and this is something that Matt Erickson and I, who else we do a weekly show now, Network Armageddon Electric Boogaloo. One of the things we've talked about is that none of these technologies in and of themselves are the problem, really.
Mm.
It's that the people using them are the problem. We've kicked out all the brakes from society. We've removed, we're now in this, you know, post God, secular society. Morals are subjective. All these things are, whizzle wazzle, who knows what. Men
Hmm.
can be women, women can be men. They've run that gamut. And now these same people are going to be introducing these security measures to correct for the crises they created.
Hmm.
This is why I've been warning people about anti-immigration. Now, look, I get it, right? You look at what's going on in Britain. You see what's going on in America. Here, Australia not as much, but whatever, right? You see these crises cropping up all over the places. And yes, something needs to be done, right? It's a crisis. It's a legitimate crisis. They have literally made it a crisis. The problem is it's the same people who are going to provide you the answer aren't interested in you. They're not,
Mm.
they don't care about you. They care about the tech. They care about other things. Now, even if we're going to give them all the allowances in the world and say that in actuality, Trump and Co. and all those guys really do like you. JD Vance really does love you, right? Cares about the American people, let's say, and wants the best for you. Okay, great. Well, what happens in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years when these guys aren't in office anymore? When other people have this
Yeah.
access to this technology?
Right. It's a
Are
slippery
you, are you
slope
gonna,
argument, right?
yeah, are you betting on them? Right?
Yeah.
If you got kids, you got to bet on who gets this technology in 50 years time, 60
Yeah.
years time. Now there's nothing you can do to stop it. This is the, don't black pill kind of moment. It's like it is what it is,
Yeah.
right?
Let's
But
dive in. Let's dive into that before like we end this conversation.
yeah, well, I think it's that. Okay, so I've laid out all this stuff, right? Doom, gloom, crisis. Especially if you're in Europe, you're
We're all
screwed.
gonna die.
Yeah, well, no,
But
you're all gonna get
we were all gonna die before this started happening, so don't
right.
worry about
Yeah, yeah.
that.
No, you're all gonna suffer. We're all gonna suffer. And you know what? It's high time. I think we deserve
Yeah,
to suffer.
it is about time, honestly.
Yeah, I think that part of my reaction to a lot of people online, especially the blame the boomer crowd, is that constantly when I hear people blame the boomers, is all I keep hearing is that all you want is their stuff. Like you're upset that you're not the boomers.
See, I
And
like to blame Woodrow Wilson because he can't defend himself.
well, and he shouldn't because he's a piece of crap. But yeah, I mean, here's a good thing, Tom. Here's a bitter white pill for you. Progressivism, the thing that Woodrow Wilson basically spearheaded, that's done. That's
Yeah.
over. It's finished. Yay!
They
Globalism.
just don't know it yet.
No, globalism as we know it, it's done. It's finished. We're going to see a retrenchment because it's going to happen. I think for the
Well,
next
you
60
see it
years.
happening all over the place.
Of course. Look, Keir Starmer famously came out and said globalism is over as we know it. Right.
Right.
That
Well,
this whole market is finished as of you're going to start seeing it this month. This is why. Oh, this is again. I've derailed myself many times in this conversation, but I get excited about this stuff because it's for me. Once you see it, you can't unsee it, and it's one of those things that the more I warn people about, the more people tell me I'm crazy and don't want to hear it. So I'm like, okay, we'll just wait. But yeah, I can't stress this enough. Is that you need to really to get your stuff together. And I'm speaking specifically in Europe, because there's going to come a time very shortly now when people's where you're going to find out that a lot of people are only doing this for the money. And when the money's not there, then you have to question if they're going to keep doing it, specifically the security forces. Now, maybe there are provisions being made to make sure that those people are well funded. And that's usually what a good despot does, right? Make sure his military and security is well funded. But they tend to only care about their own. You might wake up if you're living in London, for example, you might wake up into a day when all your police force doesn't have a retirement package anymore.
mm-hmm.
And then what happens? I don't know. Probably not good. Because really what's holding this together is that there's still enough people showing up to work And if you take away the thing that they're
The
showing up to work
incentive.
for,
Yeah, the
they're
incentive.
not going to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And that's where things get funky real fast.
Mm.
Because there's something this is getting into my concept of the vengeful son. There's this thing building up, and it's waiting for an excuse, and you're starting to see it happen. Like you're starting to see the cracks. The Shiloh Hendricks thing. The Now we're talking about black fatigue and all. Yeah, that's just the start, right?
Yeah.
Scapegoats are being created, and once that first stone is thrown, you can't undo it, and it will continue. And it's going to affect left and right and this and that and up and down and all around.
Right. Well,
Because
and one thing, because I'm looking around and I'm watching all this stuff happening and I'm recognizing what's going on. And you and I have had enough conversations about these things that I'm kind of like familiar with the whole topic. And I'm talking to my boys who are in their early 20s and I'm telling them, y'all got to get tough on yourself, man. I'm not talking bullshit. I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass. I'm not sitting here telling you life's going to be all hunky dory. You got to get tough on yourself and you got to fucking make some changes and you got to do it, and you got to do it now because things aren't always going to be easy, and like sometimes it's going to suck, but all you can do is work your way through it. Oh,
yeah,
Jason, you froze.
oh, you're froze here too.
I can hear you. I can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, am I back?
Yep,
I
there
also
it is.
I also have the internet open on my other tab, so that might be a problem.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, I think the general prognosis is, again, I don't know how long this is going to last. This is, again, in the Great Reset. This has all been pre-planned. I think the parameters of the plan have changed, but the direction hasn't. There's going to be a reset, massive economic reset,
Right.
and because of this bond market. And once that it has to happen. It has to. It's not a matter of, oh, will they, won't they? It's, like I said, it's gravity. So it's only a matter of how it's going to happen and how it's going to affect you and wherever you're listening to this. I don't know, right? I don't know how long it'll go on for or whatever have you. I think Trump and co are trying to do everything they can to cushion as many blows as possible, but this thing's going to happen, and I believe fully that we're really going to start seeing things move this month. This is why they wanted that 30-day ceasefire with Russia. Why they've been pushing this so freaking hard.
Mm-hmm.
They do not want the Russia-Ukraine situation going on while this is happening.
Mm-hmm. So, no black pills.
No blackmailing. Okay, so the remedy to the vengeful son, as I've been saying, is modeling the prodigal son, right? Return, repent, return to the Father, repent of our sins, change your life, and start the process of redemption. This is not a one and done. This isn't just you get dunked in the water, you come out and you're good.
Mm-hmm.
This is every day in every way, right? This is the Jesus prayer. This is going to liturgy every Sunday. This is what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
You start to substantiate these things because you got to get on team reality, and the liberal frame is not team reality. The liberal frame is Luciferian. It's a lie. It's a lie made and created to control and deceive you.
Well, it's through that liberal frame that this problem has been constructed.
Right. And I get it. And people go, but what about airplanes and stuff? I'm like, yeah, technology is great. Technology is cool. Hey, this whole thing we're doing, it's amazing, right? Mm-hmm. Could we have this thing without liberalism? I don't know, right? But it's not about resetting anything or wishing that we were Byzantium or all these other things. Is you deal with the cards you're given. These are the cards you're given, and then I'm telling you what the game that you're being asked to play in. You're being kept in this frame. Okay. Even looking at these debates,
I just jump up and scream and run out going, I'm a Luddite. I'm a Luddite.
You can do that, Tom. you kind of look like one. It's like if you look at the Wikipedia article on the Luddite, it's like Tommy Salmon's picture shows up.
I'm the missing link.
Right. Because an important part understanding this frame is how they've got you, and how almost all these conversations always come down to dialectics. And it's not that Hegel was wrong. Hegel's describing something within the frame.
Mm.
So the dialectic is very true in the frame. And that's what they keep doing to you. Israel, Gaza, one state, two state, da, da, da.
Problem,
It's a
reaction,
frame.
solution. Yeah.
No one's asking a third option. Why don't you have a Christian administration come in? Right? We've had that in the past.
Oh, it's a theocracy.
Hey, what? Crazy talk.
Yep.
What are you?
We
don't
want a theocracy.
What are you, woke right? What are you talking about? Right?
Yep.
Yeah. You can't have a theocracy in a theocratic nation state. Right? So
every government is a theocracy. It's just a different type of theocracy.
Yeah. How do you separate man from state? That's right. Man from religion. Right. Liberalism is this. Liberalism is always it's in the name, right? It's to liberate oneself. So it's always going to find an oppressor. This is why it's Luciferian. It's pride, right? It's this idea that no, individualism rests on this. I can be the arbiter of what? Who the frick are you? Me? Who the hell am I to be the arbiter of morality? Like, what the hell do I know? I'm only here for like what? Between 60 and 80 years, and I'm lucky.
80, yeah.
Right, yeah. What the hell am I going to contribute to the grandioseness of morality? Like, don't do the bad things. Oh, okay, right. Yeah. But you can't even define the bad things. You can't even this is where they've gotten themselves into. So we're in this interesting phase, and this is the bitter white pill here.
Liberalism didn't invent self-importance, but it sure perfected it.
It promotes it, right? It's all exaltation of the self. It's all like, me,
right?
I.
Right. Follow your passions.
Of course.
If you're a slave to your passions, you can't be a slave to man or God.
When you start even looking into your favorite influencers out there, and you see this a lot in the debate sphere, right? The Destinies, this and that. We're in this interesting time period because they're meeting now Orthodox debaters really for the first time, right? The new atheists never debated Orthodox Christians. Right. It was weird, right? How they had just omitted that. They never dealt with the Trinity.
And there weren't a lot around either. You got to realize that too.
So. I mean, yeah, maybe. I'm sure they could have found a church father out there.
Yeah, but not at that time. In the beginning, there was like the Orthodox didn't have like their a footprint on the internet, in any real way up until the last probably 5 years.
Sure, but now they do, right?
Yeah. And again, now they can't deny it. Now they can't avoid those conversations. Now they're getting stuck in those conversations, right? You saw the other day when after Pope Francis died, they had Jay Dyer on Pierce Morgan's show with, like Steve Bannon and all these other guys. And Jay Dyer's just like mocking these guys, or that are from different sects,
There's levels to this, right?
Yeah.
That's even within the Orthodox debate sphere. Like, let's say you take three names, right? All three guys I deeply respect. Jim Bob, Andrew Wilson, Jay Dyer, and they occupy different levels, right? And this is not a slant. This is not a slant on anybody. This is just a recognition of ability, right? Like Jim Bob's amazing. I love all those guys, but Jim Bob will even tell you like he's good at certain arguments, but not others, right? Andrew Wilson is better at other arguments, but not others. And then you get to Jay Dyer, and Jay Dyer is like ruthless black belt murder assassin. And you just watch him dismantle people because you can't get him on these things. You can't get, and this is why you're not going to get a lot of guys who want to debate him. Unfortunately, Jay's almost too good, right? Like he's almost perfected his skill to such a degree where no one wants to engage him, because as soon as you engage him, he just destroys you. He's destroyed Matt Dillahunty. He destroyed all these guys, all these thought leaders on the progressive left, atheists, whatever, because they can't stand. They can't deal with his tag argument. They can't get him on church history. They certainly can't get him on logic. He just dismantles people. Yeah, and it's beautiful to watch. So now you have this amazing moment where, again, we're talking about this liberal frame, and you can talk about things inside the frame. You're allowed to you're allowed to argue each other inside the frame. What you're not allowed to do is notice the frame, right, or talk about the frame, and you're
Mm-hmm.
really not allowed to break it.
Mm-hmm.
Orthodoxy breaks the frame.
Right.
The Trinity breaks the frame.
Right. Well, and that was whenever I got into the libertarian sphere, that was the attraction to libertarianism, right? It wasn't within the frame. Like Tom
No,
Woods, Tom
liberalism
Wood,
is deep in the frame.
well,
Liberalism is part of the
no,
frame.
no, not liberalism,
Oh, sorry,
libertarianism.
libertarianism is part of that
What I'm
frame,
saying is like
part and parcel.
Tom Woods had a saying. He's like breaking the what is it, the 3x5 card of allowable opinion. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
you get outside of this allowable opinion, you're starting to talk about all these different things, and that leads you in all kinds of different directions. I would have never found orthodoxy had I not started exploring everything outside of the allowable opinions that I was that had just been like ingrained into me, and I didn't even realize these barriers existed until I started, listening to and talking with Thaddeus Russell and some of these other guys that, and it's just like, oh wow, okay, there's a different way of looking at all these things. And once you start realizing there's a different way of looking at the history of the United States, at the history of man, then you're like, well, wait, what was I taught growing up as far as religion goes that was compacted within this liberal mindset that I'm breaking free of, and how can I break free of that? And then you talk to Matt and he introduced you to Lord of Spirits and you're like, holy shit.
Well, I mean, shout out to Buck Johnson. I'll credit Buck Johnson for this quote. I might butcher it a bit, but he said something along the lines of orthodoxy is the uh, is the dialectic destroyer, or something along those lines. It's specifically because orthodoxy embraces the paradox, right?
Mm,
Paradoxes destroy dialectics,
mm,
and the Trinity is the perfect paradox. It's also reality. It's one of the true gifts that God gave, along with harrowing Hades and all the rest of it,
mm,
is the awareness of the Trinity. And the fact that no one deals with it outside of, let's say, certain Roman Catholics and Orthodoxy at
mhm.
all. They do not
Right.
touch it. If anything, they only touch it to ridicule it. And that's usually only within Christian sects. Outside of it, I just thought about this morning. Because we're just running because I watched all that new atheist stuff when it came out.
Mm,
I was
mm,
deep in that camp, and I don't remember them ever talking about the Trinity. Maybe they did. Maybe someone can pull up the one time Chris Hitchens referenced it, but like in terms of even attacking it, they don't deal with it
mm.
at all. It's like it doesn't exist, and that I think is your big indication that that's really important, because again, the dialectic can't stand a third option. Tries to eradicate it, right?
Mm,
No, there's no third option. There's only this and that.
mhm.
This is again your allowable card of allowable opinions is within that frame, because almost to a man, everyone who's arguing, who's trying to expand the frame, right? They're saying, okay, I'll give you libertarians their due, right? That libertarians are saying, look, we're caught in a Republican Democrat dialectic. We got to break it by offering a third option, right? They think they're the third option, but what they don't understand is they're still inside the frame. So the frame itself, the liberal frame, contains all this. Liberal frame contains communism, fascism, Zionism, all the ideologies of the 19th and 20th century. It's all there,
Mm,
right? Like it's all contained in this. This is Father Seraphim Rose talking about this in nihilism, right? That even the different sects of nihilism itself, vitalism is just a form of nihilism
mm.
that's not based on anything. So these ideologies aren't worldviews. They're not phronemas, right? They
Yeah.
masquerade as a phronema. But
Right.
nothing in liberalism ever can instruct you on how to raise your child or
Right.
what to do when your dad dies or any of
Mm,
that stuff. It's not functional on a day-to-day basis. No one refers to classic liberalism, in emergency break glass. Oh, what does Hobbes say about my current situation about my bad back?
Right.
Like, what do I do? Right. Oh, I'm having an existential crisis. What do I do? Right. Like,
Yeah.
maybe go to Sartre. Oh, he's a pedo who gay pedophile. Oh, great. Well, let's ask them what to do with my relationship advice. What? Like, it's nonsense. But once you are aware of the absurdity that the frame produces, it's easier to reject. And the bitter white pill here is that it's not your fault. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone listening to this, it's not your fault. You inherited this. What is your fault is how you react to it. The next thing you do after understanding this then becomes your fault. Unfortunately, sorry, but it's it's an amazing gift to become aware of something, eyes to see, ears to hear. We start to get a glimpse of reality, and if you want reality, you got to chase it, and you got to fight for it, and you got to get humble. It's going to break you in a lot of ways, but it's a good breaking, because all you've been doing is substantiating lies. Your
Mm-hmm.
entire life up to this point has been a lie in one way, shape, or form. And you know it because if you're anxious and depressed and all these other things, that's part of the lie, right? Why do you feel weird? Like, why are these things happening? Why? Because you're living a lie. And there's no answer for it here. Capitalism is not going to save you. This isn't because I'm a communist or I'm pro anything. No, all of it is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to break the frame. And in my mind, the only way to break the frame is to model the prodigal son. Return, repent, redeem. Understand you've been given an inheritance. You left out of your pride and vainglory, or your forefathers did, or somebody did. And you've continued that trajectory. And now you've been brought low and you're eating the food of the pigs.
Mm.
And you got to return out of humility and mean it. And it's easy to do now. It's a blessing, because it's like, what else you got? What else?
Mm.
What else you got?
Yeah.
Continue this? What do you want? You want the extra house? Why? What are you going to do with it? Seriously. Like, your country's being invaded. Your money's worth nothing. Your daughters are being hoarded out. I can run down a list of things. So, what are you fighting for? What are you fighting to? Why are you trying to sustain
What
this
are
thing?
what are we conserving?
Right. What are you conserving? Why? And this is Gerard was a really important part of this process for me, when he said that we don't know what to desire. We want what other people want. That was, I credit, along with like Father Turbo Coils, who once said that depression is another form of vainglory. That really hit me,
Mm-hmm.
right? To start to understand the enormity of something.
Yeah.
Because once you understand that, if you start asking that question, why do I want this? Whatever you want, right? Who's ever listened to this? I want success. Why? Well, because success is going to give me this. Okay, but why? Like, what are you going to do with it? And then what? Why? Like, where did it come from? Where did this idea come from? Did you come up with it? No. Okay, so who gave you this idea? Why do you trust them? Why? Right? And just keep pestering yourself. Why and then what? Why and then what? Why and then what? My mother, my sister, my daughter, my sister, my daughter, my sister, my daughter, whatever, right? Like, you begin to break the frame inside yourself. And once you start to do that, you're along that road. It's like the inverted rural path in a sense. You kind of walk your way back through your life and go, why do I think these things? Where were they substantiated? Why do I want what I want? And then along that path, you're going to hit your contradictions. And I say this with trepidation, because it happened to me. It happened to me because of George Floyd protests. looking outside my window in Montreal, or maybe with my baby daughter, and that was the one that just went pink. This does not fit, and it just
Hmm.
cascaded. And trust me, it's not fun. It's not going to be an enjoyable process, but it's necessary, because if you keep substantiating it, you're going to get what you deserve.
Yeah. I remember you brought up Father Turbo there talking about depression. I don't remember him saying that, but one thing I do remember him saying that was along those same lines is he says there's nothing Christian about guilt. Guilt is a result of pride. And so
Mhm.
it's just replacing your sin with another sin or indulging. Maybe he said indulging a sin with another sin or something like that.
Yeah, like my sins are so great. Like
Yeah.
for the majority of people, your sins are pretty common. Like which doesn't make them not sins. Doesn't make your passions any less poignant to you. Doesn't
Hmm.
make your suffering any less painful or immediate for you. But in the context of everything, pretty minor, really.
Hmm.
Like all things considered. So, and also, it's all going to end pretty. It's all going to end one day, right? Like
Right.
all your problems are going to go away. So the only thing that's left over is the thing that you got to be worried about. Uh, and even for the secularist, here's something to keep in mind: if you have kids, or even if you don't have kids, but specifically if you have kids, you live on inside your children, right? They will model parts of you, and parts of you will live on long after you're gone. There's parts of my grandfather and my mother and that who I can identify in me, and there's I've added to those things, but those things outlive them, and I'm going to add those to my daughter, and those things will outlive me. So in many ways, aspects of me will live on in her, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm.
So in that sense, we do live forever through our
Hmm.
children. And the only thing you have to worry about then is what they're modeling, what will be passed down, because it's good. It's because it's the good and the bad.
Hmm.
Unfortunately,
Yeah. Yeah. Sins of the father. Yeah.
right. So that's part of that redeem part in return, repent, redeem. And I'm very cautious when I say this because I know it can get into pray list pretty easy. Because if some people might hear that and go, I need to redeem the world, I will, no, 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 stop. The way you redeem our dads is by being a better father,
Hmm.
by restoring the dignity and let's say helping to restore the divine aspect of the father, the earthly father, the dad, right? Because you have inside the family creates a little mini trinity. It's a little mini monastery, right? Father,
Hmm.
mother, child.
Hmm.
And these are offices. And
Yeah.
in each office,
The father is the priest of the family.
right,
Right. So
there's
you like
duties and
just imagine
responsibilities.
it. Right. Yeah. You just imagine it as a small church.
Mhm.
You know, so.
And the interesting thing is that the child is the one office that both the mother and the father share.
Hmm.
You never stop being the child in many ways. You're always the child. You just grow into different offices. So you go from the child, you become an adult, but you don't really become an adult till you get married, and then you don't really become a real adult until you have kids or you adopt a child. Like you're involved directly in the life of a child on a day to day
Hmm.
basis. Let's put it that way, right? So that office of the child remains. You're always your parent's child, and you're always the child of the father.
Right.
So our duties and responsibility as the child remain. That's why in my thesis, with this inverted family structure, tyrannical father, devouring mother, and now the vengeful son, that's the last office. That's why it's much later than you think. That's why the final revolution will be through the office of the child and will affect everyone. Because what it's doing is it's an awareness. the sudden awareness of generational betrayal and deceit
Mm.
has come home. And now the children of the last 120 years, just to be kind, a lot longer than that, but for just concentrate on the last 120, are now becoming aware of it. And that anger, and that is going to be transferred to a total violence that won't just be kinetic. And you're starting to see it break out all over the place. So there's your Antichrist.
Mm. Or as Tim Pool would say, Civil War.
Civil War. go go buy his rations. I always love that. I always love it. I always love a good Tim Pool Civil War freak out, and then followed by buy my iron rations, buy my monthly rations for the low price of $100 a month or whatever it is.
Oh, you know what he's passing off now is is buy fruit trees, ordering fruit trees online because nobody has a nursery or a tree farm near them. Like it's like what are you talking about? Was it fastgrowingtrees.com? That's what it is. And it's like, why don't you tell people to go to their local nursery or their local tree farm and help like provide income for their, direct community? Like, why are we sending this money off to like who knows where? Like,
Also, the average, I would love to see his demographic, but I would bet you his average demographic is somewhere between like the 18 to 35 demo.
mm.
So the question, so the generation who can't afford a house or land to grow a tree in, like what kind of trees are these? Little pygmy trees, little like bonsai trees. Like, oh look,
I don't know, but they grow fast.
It's an apple the size of a grape. Look how fast it is. You can just pop one of those in there. Here you go. Like off you go. What the hell is that?
I don't know. I listen to him pretty regularly because I want to try to figure out how to get in touch with the normie kind of consumers of information. So I do listen to him pretty regularly, but I can only listen to about 5 minutes of him and get the basic news off of him, and then I'm like, okay, dude, I can't stand to listen to you talk about you all the time
Have you
because that's
seen?
what it turns into. I did this and me, and I'm like, okay, bro. Like I thought you were talking about the news.
Have you dipped your toe into the prosperity gospel and the Christian influencers out of that whole sect?
I mean, I know about it because I'm from Houston and one of the biggest churches, or not from Houston, but I lived in Houston for a long time, and one
Like
of the biggest.
George Jenko and what's his name? Knuckle, whatever.
No,
Some of the big names. There's
there's a
also
big.
Girls Gone Bible. Have you heard of these two ladies?
No, I've heard of
They're
Girls Gone
fascinating.
Wild, but
Oh yeah, no. This Girls Gone Bible. Two very very attractive, young blonde, pretty Christian girls who are totally not selling sex, but sex in the Bible. But anyways,
all they talk about is the Song of Solomon.
right. Mary of Egypt gets a lot of traction. Um, but I shouldn't say too much. That's the patron saint of my church. But so yeah, no, so their whole shtick is wild, man. It's girls gone Bible. But I was going to say something, but I don't know. I've lost the thought. There was something. There was a connecting thing. I was like, you should go check that out. Oh, have you seen that? So yeah, Tim Pool's now opened up a debate channel. I don't know if you've seen this, where he's like a round table debates. Andrew Wilson, and Rachel Wilson's been on there, and a few others. And I forget what that has to do with anything else. But anyways, sorry, folks. This is still early in the morning for me, so this is my defense. Yeah, if you try to watch that, the I-ness, that's it. I, me, right? So the debate thing is actually really interesting that Tim's doing or trying to do, but of course he has to take part. So it just eventually becomes the Tim Pool debate hour, which
Oh,
is
really?
mind-numbingly stupid. But with these Christian influencers, it's you can almost play a drinking game about how many times they reference themselves. It's like, oh, I didn't know that Christianity is supposed to be all about you. Oh, it's about how you feel, like your relationship with Bob Christ. He seems like a heck of a guy, by the way. Bob Christ, wonderful person. If you pray to him right, he gives you money and all these other things. It's
Yeah.
wonderful, you know.
Yeah. Oh, that's who it is. Joel Osteen has the church
Right?
there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Very
knew I knew the
eye-centric.
name would come to my yeah. There's a hurricane and he closes the church down so nobody can sleep there. Yeah, he's a
Mm.
real stickler for that, helping
Well,
others.
you know, I'm sure if they paid him enough,
Yeah, obviously.
you can't have prosperity without the prosperous part. Come
Yeah,
on,
yeah.
prosperity gospel is right
How's he
there.
gonna,
The gospel's
how's he
the gospel's part is easy, but
how's he buying that Rolls Royce?
God wills it. I mean,
Yeah.
through your donations, it's amazing to me, right?
Wasn't that in
Because you
Coming to America, the black preacher saying, you know, that God approves of the congregation because I drive a BMW or some shit like that?
I feel like we've been through this though. Didn't we go through this with Tammy Faye Baker and her husband and all that? Wasn't the televangelist thing like I guess it's still going on. I don't know. I don't watch TV. So I don't know what's going on with that shit. But
I know my grandma
but I
used to watch 700 Club, but yeah.
right, yeah, I remember the 700 Club. I thought that had like washed itself out. But apparently, no. There's a whole new batch
Yeah.
of these young kids.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Now they just do it on
Give
YouTube
it I'll give it to them.
and TikTok.
Much nicer looking. Not George Jenko, but some of the other kids. Like I get it, right? Like they sell at stadiums, man. It's
Really?
it's wild. It's
Oh,
crazy,
damn.
and it's all this sort of like just make it up as you go. Like I'm still amazed that they at least they still offer baptism. But I forget who I
I
made this
wonder if
joke
that's
to.
who baptized Russell Brand.
Well, yeah. Part of that mush Christianity. Oh, salvation. What about forgiveness? How about some forgiveness? Forgiveness is good. Um, I always thought that they should just do some drive through baptisms. That should be a new growth industry. Just like pop a
Tick,
coin in, and just
TikTok baptism.
yeah, just get
It's
wheeled
like
through.
lasts like 15
It's like,
seconds.
saved.
It's over. Just throw water at people. All right. Well, plug away, man.
I am Jason Mironchuck, host and creator, and blah 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 blah. Mironchuck now available on all your places. I've been sloppy with my uploads to Spotify and the audio stuff. I will correct that this week. But yeah, follow me on X, follow me on YouTube and all the places. Weekly show with Jim Jotras, the mighty elder Jim Jotras, called Then and Now. We talk about primarily we talk about Russia, Ukraine, but we talk about his book. I try to warn you. Hang on. Unfortunately buried. I Try to Warn You by James George Jotras. Go pick up your copy at Amazon and all fine booksellers. So we do that every week. I do a goat stream, do live streaming, working with Matthew Erickson now on the regular. Shout out to Matthew Erickson and his radio station. I always forget the acronym. Go follow Matthew Erickson Kingpilled on X and find out all this stuff as well. Yeah, I'm around. I'm still here, you bastards. And I appreciate each and every one of you for listening to me tangent all over the place. Appreciate you, Tommy, for always having me on. It's always good to see you.
I always love you coming on. It's always fun. All right, let's stop this thing.